A very warm good afternoon for all the dignitaries, colleagues, and students present here. So, this is a session 2 based on the consequences of UV rays on human life, and I'm Dr. Ramya, Assistant Professor of Physics. So, before going into the details of the consequences of UV rays on human life, I'll generally give you a basic introduction of what are UV rays. Already, that may be covered in session 1, but a quick recap of what has happened is that UV light is an electromagnetic radiation. So this electromagnetic radiation, this is similar to the visible light. But only thing is that in the visible light, we'll be able to see all the colors from V to R, that is the VIBGR. So from violet to red, we'll be seeing all the types of the colors. But the thing with the UV radiation is it is not visible to our eye. So depending upon the context that it is not visible to our eye, it's not present. It's not that it is not present. It is present. It is emitting radiation, and it is causing harm to our health also. So we have to be very clear that if something is not visible to our eye, it is not there. That's not at all a consequence. If it is not at all present to our eye, it is causing harm invisibly. Actually, the sun produces a number of rays like cosmic rays, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible and infrared radiation. But out of all these six types of rays, except this ultraviolet ray, all other rays are either absorbed or reflected between the envelope that is covering the Earth horizon. But only the ultraviolet radiation is efficiently absorbed by the ozone layer. So in the case of ozone layer, what is happening is that the ozone layer is enveloping the Earth's surface. So this ozone layer is in fact protecting the Earth from the absorption of the UV rays or the penetration of the UV rays into the Earth's surface. So here we can see in this spectrum, this is the visible ray that is from violet to the red. So after the ending of the violet, actually the UV radiation starts, and after the ending of the red, exactly the infrared radiation is being started. So why is sun so harmful? We all say that sun is a source of energy, but why is sun harmful? Sun is harmful because sun emits ultraviolet radiation, which is very harmful to our earth. So it was treated by WHO and the United States Department of Health and Human Services that it is a carcinogen. UV radiation is a carcinogen. So what is a carcinogen? Carcinogen is a substance or the radiation which induces the cancer. So anything which induces the cancer is what we call as carcinogen. So UV rays are such harmful rays that induces the carcinogen. So we have already discussed that our ozone layer is surrounding the, it's acting as an envelope of the earth, right? Very fine. But the ozone layer is getting depleted day by day. When the ozone layer is getting depleted day by day, that envelope is getting thinned day by day. When the envelope is getting thinned day by day, the direct UV rays have the chances to penetrate more onto the earth's surface and disturb the aquatic conditions, right? So next, but why sun is good? How much sun is good? Sun is good until it produces vitamin D. Our UV rays, what we are speaking it as harmful rays, those also produces vitamin D, and exposure to sun is beneficial for all our bodies, especially the UVB radiation. So in a minute, we will discuss what is UVA, UVB and UVC. So vitamin D is necessary, that is coming from the ultraviolet rays, but ultraviolet rays are very harmful. Both are very contradictory statements. I will go slide by slide how much of absorption of ultraviolet radiation should be in our bodies. Right. So, by a reference of the National Institution of Health, they advised that the two different categories of the individual. So, lighter skinned individual or fair skinned individual and darker skinned individual. So, I am saying that UV rays you should get vitamin D. Right, how much quantity you should get and which proportion you have to get. So when you go to this lighter skin individual, so at least for 3 times in a week, they have to be in the sunlight for only 10 to 15 minutes. After 10 to 15 minutes also continuously if they are in the sun, again it causes damage to your skin. But what happens in the case of darker skinned individual? They may need 10 times the amount, produce the same amount of vitamin D. Means if the fair skinned individual are 10 minutes, 10 into 10, that is 100 minutes they have to be there in the sunlight to receive the vitamin D. So what is this different, or what is this discrimination of fair skin and the brighter skin even for the UV rays is because for the dark skin individual, there will be thick layer on the skin produced by the melanin. So this melanin causes the color for our hair as well as our skin. So if the melanin content is very low, the hair also becomes white in color, that is very fair. And also our skin melanin content is very high, our skin also becomes very dark. So this melanin is a layer that covers the surface of the skin. So what happens is that even though the dark skin individual, when they stand in the light, what happens is that the UV radiation cannot penetrate deep inside to that layer containing melanin unless more time of exposure is observed. So that's the only reason. And the melanin for the dark skin people, it acts like a protective layer, like ozone is covering our air, melanin is covering the body. Right. So what are the sources of the UV light? From where? First and foremost source, natural source is that sunlight is the greatest and natural source of UV radiation. Apart from that, everywhere we make mistakes. Apart from sun, we are making the UV devices, UV sources, UV lamps, arc welding lamps, mercury vapor lamps, and different equipments that kill bacteria and viruses. Recently, during the time of Corona, I have gone through a video in which the people are using a box like thing like which we use for the microwave oven for sanitization of the mobile and specs, sunglasses, kerchief, everything like this equipments. When they go out and come in, so they have to sanitize everything and they should not touch. That's what happened for almost 1 year and also happening now. So instead of using some sanitizer or liquid to clean everything with a tissue, they are using a machine that produces ultraviolet ray that kills the bacteria and virus. So there also we are using a harmful procedure. We are thinking that we are supporting and protecting our health, but in the reverse way, we are not at all protecting it. We are increasing the complications day by day. So who are the victims of UV radiation? See, when I have gone through this, who will be the victims? I'm really shocked about the number of the victims. What not? Outdoor workers, construction workers, right? Contractors, surveyors, agriculture and forestry, fishing. All these people are exposed to the sunlight for a large amount of time. When they're exposing themselves with a large amount of time without any protection, they are undergoing complications or damage to their skin as well as to their eyes. And see, in the case of the physiotherapist, dermatologist, pediatrician, forensic expert, laboratory workers, so what these people are using, these people are directly using the UV light. So UV light to treat the patients. When they are using UV light for a prolonged amount of time, think what happens. Apart from this man-made, this sun as a natural energy, we are creating this artificial energy and making complication for our life day by day by day. Okay, without knowing that we are going back, we are thinking we are advancing in science. We are never advancing in the science. Even though we are advancing in the science, we are advancing in dangers too. So these many people, all the people who work with the UV light or the victims of the UV exposure. And also what are the devices? See, carbon tube, xenon and other arc lamps. All these lamps we use in our laboratories, ultraviolet air curing lamps, fluorescent equipment, right? Mercury lamps. So there is a peculiar thing of the mercury lamp. Actually, mercury lamp will emit the UV radiation and there will be a protective layer around the mercury lamp so that the radiation emitted outside this particular layer, what it does it will screen the UV radiation and all the other light will goes away. Suppose that rounded envelope form, so the protective layer breaks, then apart from all the other light, UV radiation will also come out. So we have to be very careful when we are dealing with the mercury vapor lamp. So all these welding equipments, hydrogen and deuterium lamps, everything, these all the things what they are doing, these are the devices that are used for uh, different things like this dentist and assistant dermatologist and all these equipments are used by them, and hence they emit the UV radiation. So we are we are thinking that we have advanced by producing these devices. No, we have not been advanced. We have been advanced. Suppose that if we have advanced, we have advanced in danger, or if we are not advanced, you can have take back a position to get back the danger, right? So now coming to this figure, so this is the ultraviolet region. In this ultraviolet region, you can see there are three parts. One is UVA, UVB and UVC. So I'm not concerned now with the visible infrared and X-rays. I'm talking only about the ultraviolet rays. So in this, I'm sorry. So in this ultraviolet rays, what is happening is that there are three categories, UVA, B and C. So when you are coming to UVA, B and C, we can see the UVC starts from 100 nanometers up to UVA, it is 400. So ultraviolet region starts from, the range of the ultraviolet region is 100 nanometers to 400 nanometers, fine. So when the wavelength is less, the energy produced is more. So energy E is equals to H nu, E is equals to Hc by lambda. So and E and lambda are inversely proportional. So when the wavelength is less, the energy produced is more. So here the maximum energy is produced by UVC rays, next energy is produced by UVB rays, and then next energy is produced by UVA rays. So this is the wavelength range we have seen here. So what is UVC? Highest energy rays. So it is very harmful, right? But it is completely blocked by the ozone layer. So this UVC rays are completely blocked by the ozone layer. So what about the UVB rays? UVB rays are less energy compared to UVC, but also dangerous. It is 90% blocked by the ozone layer. And UVA, which is the least energetic, it is 50% blocked by the ozone layer. But the very important thing we have to remember is that this particular UVB rays, what we are talking of, though it traps 90%, though ozone layer traps 90% of the UVB radiation, that 10% can effectively harm and cause cancers or induces cancer. So that much powerful is a UVB rays. But at the same time, it is also used for the production of vitamin D. Suppose we are overexposed to UVB, it damages the skin and causes skin cancer, sunburn, and also what we speak about this cataracts, that cataracts also will get developed. But UVA, when you compare, UVA, of course, it penetrates deeper into the skin. So next coming slides, we'll discuss which UVB, how it penetrates, and UVA, how it penetrates into the skin. UVA actually penetrates very deeper into the skin. So that is the reason of having this aging and wrinkles on our faces on a face or a body after a prolonged amount of age, right? Right, this is about the ozone layer we have discussed. See, this particular UVA, it is penetrating up to 50%. UVB, okay, 90% is trapped and only 10% is coming. And UVC, it is completely blocked, right? Right. So how can we calculate this UV radiation? By measurement of UV index. So we can measure the intensity of UV radiation that causes reddening on the skin. That reddening of the skin is called as erythema. I remember very well, after this lockdown, that is in March 2020, for about 6 months of the time, we have the complete lockdown and all the educational institutions have not been open. So for our day-to-day activities also, once in a week time, that one evening or mornings, like early morning 9 to 11, they have given some time. In that particular time, you can go out and bring whatever you want. After that, you should not come out and all these things happening. So we were used to that and we were maximum in our homes. So after this October and November, when this education institution opened, when I started going to the college, when I went to so there is a 10 minutes walk from my home to the bus stop. So when I have to walk in that around 8 o'clock, it's like it's not very shady and all, but it has a reasonable amount of the exposure of the sun. So after 1 or 2 days, I developed this broken skin around my neck, and I was so shocked. It's completely reddened and it's completely broken. Reason is that we have been in the home for 6 months. We are becoming so sensitive. So at least I became so sensitive to the sun's exposure. So soon after, when I went into the sun, my skin became very sensitive in the areas which is very weak. What it happened is that UV radiation which fell, the skin cells there became damaged. So that's the actual UV index. Though then after some time, after 1 week, it took almost some 5 days to 1 week to completely heal it. So actually why I'm saying this is that what is the UV index is that it's a measure of intensity of UV radiation that causes reddening on the skin. So the UV index, how much it runs from 0 to 11. So 0 means it is a very low exposure or no sunlight. When you take 1 to 3, it is a low exposure. You can just wear a sunglass, apply sunscreen and go. 4 to 6 is a medium. So you have to cover up very properly. You have to wear a hat so that it doesn't cause damage to your head. And sunglasses and sunscreen. 7 to 9 is very high. We have to walk only in shade because I live in Andhra Pradesh, and it's many of you, I live in Andhra Pradesh, Tirupati. It's very during this summer it will be very hot. So whenever we go out, we take the umbrella and go so that no direct sun radiation fall onto our head, right? So people in very dense areas or very hot areas should be very careful and shade cover up. They have to wear a hat and sunglasses along with the sunscreen. Greater than 10 or plus 11 is an extreme exposure. This extreme exposure, so from the timings of 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., you have to cover up, wear a glass, sunglasses and sunscreen. Though you do all this, try not to step down between 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. At least from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Why? Because in our coming on presentation, we'll see the sun will be exactly on your head. Sun at the zenith or sun at the altitude. So when the sun is at the altitude, the distance taken for the UV rays to come to the earth will be very short. So many of the UV rays will come and fall. When many of the UV rays come and fall, there is more chance that this UV radiation may penetrate into your skin or into your body. That is called as extreme exposure. Fine. How you calculate the UV index? So we have been talking about the UV index. So according to the shadow rule. So what is a shadow rule? If our shadow is shorter than us, then sun is high in the sky. So the intensity of the radiation is very strong. Right. Next one, if your shadow is taller than you are, then sun is not very high up. So UV radiation is not reaching you to the stronger level. It correlates for what I have told in the previous slide. When sun is in top of your head, then what happens? It's very high. We are thinking that sun is very high, but we are not thinking about the UV radiation that is coming from the ozone layer. Okay, apart from the ozone layer, the whichever UV radiation is coming and falling, that is what is happening. That has high altitude. So when the sun is at high altitude, there is more chances it comes and falls on us. So when sun is not very high, what happens? Only a reasonable amount of UV radiation is coming, and we have to take a preventive measures for it. Right. So yes, we have discussed this. So apart from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., the distance of UV radiation has to travel to reach the earth is the shortest of the day. Throughout the day, when you take between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., so the distance the UV radiation has to travel is very short. So when it is very short, what happens? The radiation that hits the earth in a day occurs during these 2 hours, and when we go out, then the exposure will be very high. So additionally, what happens? So when the altitude increases, UV radiation will be more intense, and there is another factor called as cloud cover. So what is this cloud cover? Is that some people will think that today is not very sunny, it is very shady, okay, it's not that much sunny, so I can go out, no UV radiation will come. No, it's very wrong. So though it is not sunny, clouds which are covering, they don't have that much capacity to make the UV radiation to stop. There may be some very dense clouds. In fact, of many dense clouds, there may be a little chance that some percent of UV radiation will be trapped, but maximum of the UV radiation will comes and falls. So we should not. So that is a fun fact that many people will think like that, but it's not like that. So right. So previously we have discussed about the dark skin people and the fair skin people, right? So up to much time we have. We can take a common index, UV index of 7 for skin type 1 and for skin type 2 also 7 minutes. So less than 20 minutes the screen readens for the fair skin people, and it takes 40 minutes for the dark skin people to get its skin reddened because they have a cover. What is that cover? That cover is called as melanin present on the skin. Of course, it's a very, very advantage for dark skin people. Even they go to the sunlight also, that radiation will not affect them more. But if you don't get exposed also, that leads to the deficiency of vitamin D. Right. So what induces or what increases UV radiation? So whenever UV radiation comes and is coming from the sun, if it gets fall on snow or if it strikes the snow or sand or concrete, it bounces back or it reflects back. Snow will not absorb UV radiation, sand will not absorb UV radiation, concrete will also never absorb UV intensity, UV radiation, that will be bounced back. And also we have discussed that light cloud cover will not allow the UV radiation to fall on. And water is the only thing that reflects only a small amount of UV. Water also, it reflects only small amount of UV, it absorbs maximum. So only thing which reflects less or which absorbs more UV radiation is water. Fine. So what are the parameters? First one, the altitude. So if you are near to the equator, then UV exposure is more. Next one, altitude. More UV rays reach the ground at higher elevations only. Next, clouds. So the effect of clouds may vary. Light clouds are there means there is a chance that maximum of the radiation falls. Dense clouds are there means there is a chance that some more light will be trapped inside the cloud. Reflection of surfaces. So sand, snow, water. Water is a special case, right? Pavement or even grass also, it increases the UV exposure. So what are the contents of air? The ozone is the upper atmosphere. So that ozone filters out some UV radiation. So what are the factors is the altitude, clouds, reflection, and also the distance, right? What is the science behind it? We are saying that UV radiation is very harmful. UV radiation will cause skin burn, that damages cells. But what is the actual principle or what is the actual science behind going on? Right. You have seen UVA, UVB, and UVC. So UVC is completely blocked. We are not concerned of it. UVA, now we are not concerned. UVB is the most powerful. Even though 10% is coming to the earth, it is causing maximum damage. So what is happening? When UVB radiation hits the skin, so when you take your hand, if it hits the skin, what happens here is that the cells of that particular part will get damaged or broken. Okay, so what happens here? The microRNA becomes damaged or break. Then what the remaining neighboring cells will do is that they will see this RNA has been damaged, and what it tries to do is that it inflames the skin around these cells. So wherever the skins are there, so it inflames around this. So whenever inflammation happens, what is the process going on there is that we think it is a sunburn. So actually what it is happening is that they are trying to repair the cells present here or removing the dead cells. They are trying to heal if the cells are just damaged, or they are trying to remove the dead cells if the cells are dead, right? And also what does it happen is that there is a chance that these cells will go the genetic mutations. So although the sun, okay, genetic mutations also will happen. We'll see how to stop the genetic mutation. So when UV radiation comes and falls on the skin, what happens? The skin will get damaged or the skin cells will get dead. So positively what happens? Neighboring cells will all speak to each other and they get inflammation. So during that inflammation, either the skin cells which are damaged that get repaired, or what happens is that they get dead. So that dead cells will get removed. We think that skin burn is a very common issue. No, it's not a common issue. Very severe skin burn or number of skin burns in a person's life, so that will develop a skin cancer called as melanoma in the later life. When we are young and energetic, we think we can do everything, nothing will happen to us, no corona can attack us. No, it will show it effect not now. When your one of the body parts become slow down, slow down, slow down, then all of the impacts will be showing on your health, right? So now what happens in the case of skin cancer? How this skin cancer comes is that the ultraviolet rays are usually the instigator. So like we say this a precursor for starting the reaction. So it is an instigator. Which is the instigator? The UV rays are the instigator. So who work on this cancer cells, the researchers, they have seen this squamous and basal cancers. So basal cancer is the cancer. Basal cells will be there in our skin. So what does the basal cells do is that basal cell will promote new cells. So when you have the dead cells, they will heal and they induce more cells. Okay, and the squamous cancers are also obtained when you are exposed to high UV radiation, right? So there are particular genes in the cells that genes will not get mutated, right? They will be isolated. Like we have the inert gases like helium, xenon. Those are all inert gases. We have an isolated gene. That name of the gene is P53. So why this is a very protective layer. So like melanin is a protective layer for the dark skinned people, and ozone is a protective layer for the earth. P53 gene is a protective cell that prevents the cancer cell. So what is the P53? Normally what happens is that when the UV radiation falls on your skin, so what I have told is that what it is written is that the cells will get damaged there and inflammation happens. And the process there happening is that it removes the damaged cells or tries to heal the cells. So how this process happened due to the gene called as P53. So these P53, it prevents the mutation of the cells. Suppose that P53 is not there, then all the damaged cells will get mutated with other cells and entire part will be damaged. So what it does is that it inhibits the division of the cells that has been mutated or damaged. Suppose the damaged cell cannot is repaired, fair and good. So it is repaired, it will get normal. If it is not repaired, then P53 makes the cell, damage to cell, to destroy itself. That is called a cellular suicide. Either damaged cell should get repaired or it should commit suicide. That is what I call a cellular suicide. So that cannot be spread to the other parts. So how the repair happen? It happens due to the gene called as P53. Suppose that unfortunately, if P53 is not working properly, if P53 is also mutated, then the damage will be more, and we come across the damaged cells also replaces the healthy cells. That's what in cancer it happens. The damaged cell, it will get mutated until all the healthy cells, and the condition is called as cancer. So these types of cancers are not we are not saying it is usually happening, but there is a chance that the happening of the cancers are possible if we get exposed more to UV radiation, and it's called as malignant melanoma. Malignant melanoma, they say that there is no direct evidence that will happen definitely, but there is a chance or suspect that UV exposure may increase the malignant melanoma. So this is the cells before the UV radiation is there. So after incoming UV photon strikes this, the cells get damaged in this way. And this is the DNA, and this is the P53 gene we have been speaking for. Right. So the adaptation of the skin. So if you stand for 20 minutes or 40 minutes, skin redness will come. Daily, if you stand, what happens is that our skin get adapted to that UV radiation, and that condition is what we call as hyperlapsia. Hyperlapsia is the thickening of the superficial layer on epidermis. So on the skin, it will get, what happens is thick layer will be formed. So what we see is that adaptation, we think that the skin is not get threatening. There is some layer, there is no problem. Now I got adapted. No, your skin got adapted to receive the radiation, and that radiation is doing the damage which is invisible because ultraviolet rays are invisible, right? So when the human skin is exposed to sunlight, so what we think is that it goes deeply. Okay, UVB and UVA. So now we see in this diagram, so this is a layer of the skin. First layer is the epidermis and second layer is a dermis. So UVA radiation that passes directly into the dermis, passes directly into the dermis, but UVB that is absorbed by the micromolecules, the DNAs, RNAs, and the proteins which are present on the on surface only, not going into the surface, and the process starts there. So instigated starts there, and it starts affecting every part of the body if it is not treated well. So UVB radiation will only touch the epidermis, right? So in response to the exposure, the skin responds by increasing the amount of the upper dead layer. So we have seen there will be one thick layer present. We think that it is an adaptation that is called a stratum corneum. So they will think that it will be either it can reflect or refract either UVA radiation or UVB radiation, right? So what is happening is that, so we think like UVA radiation, it passes into the dermis and epidermis, fine, everything is. So what is the side effect? We are thinking our skin is getting adapted. No, our skin is adapting the UV radiation, but it is going inside and it is damaging the proteins, DNA and RNA present in the cell. Again, it is invisible. So that's why UV radiation itself invisible, and whatever it is causing is also invisible, right? So what are the risk factors? So another thing is that when we have this melanoma or more exposure, apart from having this thick layer, so we have different burns during the child or young adult when we are more exposed. Apart from that, there will be some genetic predisposition and also the color of change in the color of the hair. Okay, some red color and number of moles. After certain age, some people will develop number of moles in their body. So then what we have to do is that we have to have the sun exposure, occupational sun exposure means in and out intentionally we have to go and have this sun exposure in order to prevent. So at a glance, so first photochemical reaction, primary reaction for the ultraviolet rate is damage the skin cells. Suppose it get repair systems may mend a damage or a part of damage. Suppose repair system itself gets damaged means it increases UV radiation. So much of the UV radiation, epidermal layers or the top layers will become thicker. Falling, what happens? Melanin pigment will be thickly coated, and again repeated exposure then complicates the situation. So these are the few steps of how to develop or developing of the cancer cells in our body. So we have seen this, both these types of cancers are very predominant for UV radiation. So basal cancer, what it happens, it will stop producing new cells, and squamous cancer, that also when you have high exposure, it will not allow your skin cells to grow. These are the most two types of cancer, and the melanoma is not a serious, but it's a less type of cancer. It is seen in few individuals, right? So the two important parts of the body which get affected directly by UV radiation is, one is skin, another one is eye. So they depending upon the source of the UV light. So these are the different things. One is called as flash burn, ground glass eye burn, welder's flash, snow blindness, and cataract. So cataract occasionally UVB, or cataract is observed only if we absorbed in UVA into our lens. So see, these are the flash burn. So this reddening of the cornea is called as, so this layer is called as a flash burn when we are exposed to the UV radiation. So it is a painful inflammation of cornea. So there will be inflammation, and also it will be very blind, right? Next, welder's flash. This is an arc type. So our eyes will not be as usual. It will be, the inflammation will be an arc type, and also it gives certain pain. Ground glass eyeball. This can be observed after using the cataract. So this is also one predominant type of the eye disease, photokeratosis. So it is like, say, on the top layer we can see an arc shape. This is also called as arc eye. So this arc eye will be observed if we exposed to the UV radiation. Next one is the slow blindness. Snow blindness. Why? What we have discussed. When the UV radiation comes and gets instanted on the snow, it will bounces back. So it bounces back and it falls on the eyes. It creates a blindness. So all these types of blindness, what happens is that some can be rectified, some can not be rectified. It will lead to permanent eyesight loss if not treated properly. So what happens is that there will be some sensation of sand which is present in our eyes, some dust present in our eyes, and it blurs the vision. All this happens maximum to the people who are working with this welding machines and all. They are, when they are not protecting themselves from the glasses and also the shield, what happens is that they develop this type of cancers. So photokeratosis and photoconjunctivitis. So these are related to that eye diseases. They are unpleasant, but usually it can be reversed. So it has the medicine that can be prevented by using the appropriate, what do you call it as, appropriate sunglasses. This photokeratosis is, so we say that skin burn. When our skin is exposed to UV radiation, our skin will burn. Suppose that UV radiation is incident on eyes of the cornea, that burning is what you call it as photokeratosis, right? So this chronic effect, chronic means prolonged effect. So they develop squamous cell cancer and cataract. So chronic means over a period of time. It's not like 1 day, 2 day, or 1 month or 2 months. Prolonged exposure, long exposure will lead to different types of the cancers. So what are the other effects? First effect, it damages our immune system. That's enough. That's more than enough, I think, right? So it damages our immune system. Overexposure will suppress our immune system. Next, we said that sunburn. So it redistributes the white blood cells which fight against the diseases. So it redistributes the function and disease of the white blood cell. It weakens the plastic. So very well know that when we keep the plastic boxes or plastic bottles in the sun for a prolonged time, after that there is a chance that that particular plastic, the cheap plastics and all, break immediately. So what does happen is that the UV radiation fall on the polymers present in the bottle and it weakens, okay, that plastics, nylon or polystyrene, and it loses the strength due to the exposure of the UV light. It fades the colors, a very important thing, and we all know it. So when we wash our clothes and dry them under the sun, so there are two things. So first advantage is that when we dry them under the sun, the UV radiation coming from the sun, what happens is that it removes the virus, bacteria, whatever there in your dresses. Fine. So if you wash and dry the nice colors or fresh ones or the new ones, and for a prolonged amount of time, if you dry them in the sun, what happens is that it fades the color, it removes the color. So high intense radiation. So what is happening? The radiation is taking off the color from there or changes the color also. Some this greenish blue and bluish green automatically, actually when we wash it, some that color will go, and when we dry it will be some pale blue or pale green it comes, right? All these fabrics, furnishes and paintings and all, they should not be kept in the exposure of the UV radiation, right? Always we are saying UV radiation this, that, UV radiation does that, UV radiation causes cancer. What all this? UV radiation is also giving some proper benefits. So it is main usage is formation of vitamin D3. So in our body, vitamin D3, if you want to form, that can be used by UV radiation. It helps the moods. So many of the doctors suggest to many people, right? So I'm not having a good mood. It is not a quick start of the day. I'm suffering from that. I'm getting into depression. They suggest, no, morning you go for a walk for 10 to 20 minutes. Uh, then in your terrace or in your park or in a ground, you brisk walk for 10 to 15 minutes. So why they say it is that it is help thus ultraviolet radiation, which is having the vitamin D3, also helps the moods. So there is a gland in our brain called as pineal gland. That pineal gland is a P-shaped gland. So even it is a P shape, nobody is able to discover what does entire glands suggest for, or the importance of the gland. But only one thing is it helps to improve the mood, or it is able to control the hormones by certain chemicals, producing certain chemicals called as tryptamines. So those chemicals will improve your mood when you go and expose yourself to the UV radiation, right? It is useful for disinfectant and sterilization. So we have discussing this disinfectant, sterilization, that sanitizing machine, everything, so that can effectively kill the microorganisms, and also it can kill us if you are more exposed to that. So it is used for the formation of vitamin D3, helps moods, and also used for disinfectant and sterilization, right? So what is the impact on the other materials? So it has toxicity of the contaminants. If these particular contaminants, when these contaminants or pesticides or fuels, when these are exposed to UV radiation, its toxicity will increase. So this sunscreen lotions and all also, it is a part of the suit which approaches UV protection for humans. So these sunscreens are used for the potential effects on the aquatic ecosystems. And also these microplastics are formed by UV induced radiation. So this microplastics, apart from plastics, we are using the microplastics, and it is widely used in the industrial purposes for killing the bacteria. So first and foremost thing, for killing what? Bacteria, viruses, creating fluorescent effect, and all, and also the phototherapy. So very important application is that it is used as medicines. Everything has some merits and also some demerits. So when you are going to the demerits, we are saying that it causes that and this. So what about the merits? So in the merits, it can be used for the phototherapy. Some skin related problems, even though you are not exposing more, at least you are not at all exposing your body to the sun, the problem called as psoriasis will come. That can be treated only with the UV light. So it is used as a phototherapy, and for a treatment known as PUVA. a drug called as Thoralin is given. So what is the drug does? If you want to use UVA radiation, that UVA radiation, first your skin should be ready to get that radiation. So your skin should be sensitized to that radiation. Like when doctors will perform operations, they will give anesthesia. So this local anesthesia and general anesthesia. So what happens in the case of local anesthesia is that only the part around or the surrounding part where the operation has to be done, that part will become numb. So for the general anesthesia, what happens? Your entire body will become numb. Means your body is ready now and you are not able to sensitize anything that's happening. Similarly, what is happening is that the skin where the drug has to make your skin sensitive for UV. Then the UV radiation will be passed on. This is for UVA. So another treatment is that UVB. So without any drug, directly UVB can be given to you, right? So what we have to do? We have to stop the UV radiation. Fine. How to stop the UV radiation? So this depletion of the ozone layer should stop. If the depletion of the ozone layer doesn't stop, then UVA, UVB, sometimes UVC also comes if completely the ozone layer is depleted. So ozone layer depletion happens only due to the chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. So if we can substitute CFCs, then it is fine. So what we have to do? We have to do the hydrochlorofluorocarbons, that is an alternative, hydrofluorofins and trifluoroacetic acid. So these three types we can substitute for CFCs. But among these, trifluoroacetic acid TFA, it is a strong acid and is sufficiently, in large concentration, it can produce, that too can produce damage to organisms. But when they have estimated one side on CFC, another side on TFA, a lot amount TFA cannot produce any minor defect compared to CFC. So when you take 10% of CFC and 10% of TFA, so 10% of CFC can produce a lot damage to the atmosphere, where 10% of TFA cannot even produce a minor effect, right? This is a very important and favorite table of me. So it has been taken over different years by different people. So, but I too never realized that UV radiation is this much harmful, right? Excuse us. So this much harmful. So in 1915, they have found out that indoor workers has an 8 times higher risk of dying of cancer compared to the outdoor workers. Means they are not exposed to the sun radiation. Next one is that northeast people who are away or dark-skinned people, they have high risk of dying of cancer compared to the people living in the southern states. And we who are living, so this is a contrast one, this is the people who are living nearer to the equator. Now here are the people who are having higher altitude in the United States, they have a higher risk of developing this colorectal cancer. Means without exposing of sunlight they are dying of the cancer, that cancer is called as colorectal. So that is another reason. And woman who has most sun exposure, so breast cancer, once it was very wide problem, now also it's a very wide problem. But so between the ages of 10 and 19 years who had more sun exposure, they are having the lower risk, that is 69% reduced risk compared to the women who had least sun exposure. So more exposure to the sun, what happens is that it will lead to the less risk life, right? So how we have to protect? Now protection. So we are saying that UV radiation is invisible, it is not stimulating, right? What we have to do is that, so it is absorbed in variety of regions, we are not escaping from that, but we have to protect from it. So in order to protect from that, what we have to do is that we have to do shielding. Shielding is very easy to design. So what we think is that even in this corona time, sometimes we will forget to wear the mask, or even though we wear the mask occasionally, sometimes we take it and keep it somewhere. Some people never wear mask at all, they say that corona has gone away, but corona will be there and still will be there by WHO, and the cases of still more increasing. Lockdown has also been started in Maharashtra for 1 week. So we are not protecting ourselves. We are thinking nothing will happen to us because it is invisible. Suppose that, for example, think that you are walking on the road and a truck is coming opposite side very fast, then you will protect yourself going to another side. So you think that that is visible and that is harmful and that is going to do something to you and you are protecting yourself. Corona or this UV radiation, it is also invisible. It is making maximum damage than a drug. right? But as it is invisible, we are thinking it is not there. So the only concept is that though it is invisible, it is causing damage. So we have to use a proper setup while these welders or doctors or dentists or physiotherapists, whatever, who are all dealing with this UV radiation, should be very careful in dressing up properly for the protective layer. First one, avoid working in sun unless it is very deadly needed. So protective clothing, so covering your arms and legs, right? So there are some resistant fabrics also that is used for efficient in blocking the UV radiation. So you can use a hat and to shade your face, this forehead part. Some people will have tan or black bunch here due to the more exposure like this. So you can wear a hat. So we can wear wrap around the sunglasses or mask yourself by to block the UVA and UVB rays. So sunscreen lotions are mostly preferred with SPF 15 and SPF 30 also. That will avoid UVB radiation and as well as the UV ray radiation. They absorb immediately. Whenever you use sunscreen also, they will absorb immediately and they will act as a protective layer at least for some time. So we have to stay in the shade, especially the midday hours from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. wherever you're saying. So another thing is that avoid indoor tanning. Don't be more sensitive that you have to be, you should never go out. It's not like that. You should get exposed to UV radiation to have your vitamin D3. Apart from that, you have to avoid indoor tanning. Similarly, that sun tanning also, no, they will expose to, while in beach, and also they are all tanning to the sun. That also develop overexposure or limited exposure. Both will develop different types of cancers, right? While doing all the more PPT, I have been thinking, what is the psychology of UV rays? It is saying that UV rays more exposure, cancer. UV rays less exposure, cancer. Means anything that is excess or less is poison. So once a person came and asked Swami Vivekananda, sir, what is poison? Swamiji, what is poison? Swamiji told anything excess is poison. If you are overexposed to UV rays, what is happening? You are getting cancer. So you should have an exposure, but it should be a limit. So it should be proportionate, not everything excess. So after all this PPT, what we have understood that the role of the science is to provide the best understanding of the world at the moment. What is happening at this moment? So what is the science involved for a damaged skin? What is the science involved for producing cancer? All these things, the role of the science is to provide the best understanding what is happening. So after you get an understanding, what we have to decide how to use this information. So today you are all listening about what is UV rays, what happens to the human life, and what are the protective reasons. All is the information we all get. After getting information, how you have to decide your life, so how you have to protect your life, that's the most important. So science gives you the information, rest you have to decide. That is your mindset, right? So coming to the end, so first of all, I wish to uh, applaud my sincere thanks to Lord Almighty for making it happen during this time. And my sincere thanks to my family who have been supporting. Sincere thanks to the management, to the government college Harsut Khandwa, Madhya Pradesh, and the head of Department of Physics, Dr. Rajendran sir, the coordinator, Madam Sunita ma'am, who has been updating me each moment and making it comfortable for me in all the aspects. I would like to thank our management of our college, Anmacha Institute of Technology and Sciences, for the cooperation, and head of the Department of Humanity and Sciences, and all my dear colleagues for the kind cooperation and encouragement for coming, for making this webinar successful. And thank you. This order for any queries, you can have this or my contact details, and you can post the questions there also. Thank you.